Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel, and if you're new here, welcome. My name is Drew, and this is where I discuss just about anything related to higher education, from student affairs to really best ways for students to navigate the college life. And in this video, I'm going to talk about a documentary that I watched called Starving the Beast. Now you can find this, you can rent this on YouTube. You can also, I believe you can rent it on Prime, but I found it for free through Kanopy, which is a streaming service that affiliates with public and university libraries. So if you have a library card and access to digital streaming services, you most likely have access to Kanopy, and that is where you can watch this for free. So this documentary was filmed around 2016, and I think it really aimed to encompass the current public opinions of higher education. So it opens up in talking about how public funding or state funding for higher education was at its peak in 1980, when it was over 60% of state funding or 60% of the university funding was coming from the state. And then you fast forward to 2015, and that's dropped to 12%. And then along with this, because that funding has dropped, it has also demonstrated how student tuition has risen and how student debt has also exploded along with that. So it talks about a lot of the different ways in which people view higher education. And one of the ways in which they mentioned was the book, The Innovator's Dilemma. And if you're not familiar with it, a very, very brief summary is sort of disruptive technology and market trends and market needs and how that technology influences it. And so what they say is that, I believe it was Clayton Christensen who wrote the book. And so what they said is Christensen, he kind of looked at the steel market in the US and compared it to Japan when he wrote this book. But he really kind of excluded a lot of factors that led to a lot of what was going on. So the book and the theory itself may be flawed. Now, I have to say that as a preface, because what they go on to explain is that they took the innovator's dilemma, this theory, this idea, and they said, you know what, let's apply it to higher education, because we don't think universities are doing it right, because we're seeing tuition increase and we're seeing little value. So how do we create disruptive technology to broaden the offerings and the access to the delivery of the content, and how do we get our students access to that content? Now, this was around a time when technology was not as accepted and not as many people were as comfortable with this technology. So you were thinking about the MOOCs, the massive open or the massive online open courses, which were not really that popular. It was trying to bring classes online, trying to do tours virtually, and it didn't really pick up. And what was starting to happen is that the idea of higher education was shifting. And so what you originally had is students who were going to become future citizens, and they were their education was really sort of the property of their community and the state and the country. And this shift changed that mindset to where students are now consumers, and the value of that education is on them, and they should be able to get something out of it, and not so much really about the community or the state. And so this has created what they say is a toxic ideology of college isn't doing anything. So the documentary actually goes through a few more examples. They talk about Texas and how Jeff Sandifer, who was a business professor, I believe at UT Austin, who created the 7 breakthrough solutions for higher education. He felt that there were ways to make operations more efficient, such as changing the funding model for faculty, how accreditation is achieved, and how financial aid is given to students. And so it kind of gained some popularity, and I think a lot of states were looking at it, but then there were also supporters of higher education as it was, who are starting to get a little worried, because now you're giving more control over policymakers in determining the fate and the future of certain faculty members. And it all boiled down to, are faculty producing, and are the institutions producing graduates who are getting jobs? And that's been an ongoing debate for years. And that's where this documentary is still very relevant today. And it talks about a few other examples They go to the University of Virginia, the University of Wisconsin in Madison, Louisiana State University, and they talk about all of these little things where there is political polarization of polling of you need to change universities faster, or you're raising tuition to offset tax cuts, you're trying to get rid of tenure, and it's just about this push-pull with higher education. And ultimately, it talks about how the public view is we are trying to find graduates who are capable of joining the workforce. We're looking for skilled laborers, in effect, because that is going to contribute to a stronger economy. These are the people, this camp, these are the ones saying we really need to start evaluating the production and the performance of universities. Whereas the others are saying that's not how it works. That's not how education works. That's not how it's meant to work. And you need to let institutions just do what they do because they've been doing it for hundreds of years and effectively for a few decades, including their contribution to government research and how you have many research institutions that are in partnership with the National Science Foundation. And so it goes back and forth. My takeaways, and at least the first thing I will say is you need to watch this for yourself. It is very deep. It's very dense. There is a lot going on and there are a lot of different viewpoints. So you need to watch it and you need to decide for yourself how you feel about it or whether you know something about it or if this has impacted you, if you are in one of these states or if you're familiar with the 7 breakthrough solutions. And when I look at it, I think I agree with both sides. You know, I think we do need to produce students and graduates who are capable of entering the workforce. However, I feel like the common opinion to date is a little narrow-minded. Not everyone can be a computer programmer. Not everyone can work in the tech industry. Not everyone can really utilize all of these hot, trendy jobs right now, and it's not for everyone. And on the flip side, I can understand that argument of if you're going to major in underwater basket weaving, how are you ever going to contribute to society? But what I would argue is that there are many customer service, I shouldn't say customer service, but customer related jobs where you need critical thinkers with soft skills and strong communication skills. You need leaders. And I think the humanities and the liberal arts produces graduates that are capable of this. So I think it's narrow-minded to say, well, if you're going to major in history, then you can only do so many history jobs. I don't think that's the case. Because how I view this, and this is kind of an oversimplification, to do a very technical job, you need a skill. You can learn that skill. You can learn that skill from a book. But what society needs, and in effect the economy, we need thinkers. And you can't learn to think from a book like you can learn a skill from a book. So you need to learn how to learn, and that's what we tell a lot of our students. And you need to learn to think critically and entertain multiple perspectives and tolerate differing opinions and have those conversations. And that's how you get to strong solutions. That's how you build progress, and that's how you contribute to the economy. And because it's not direct, because it's not black and white, people don't like that. They would prefer that you have these hard skills, you go into your job and you do your job. And some countries in Europe, I think, prepare their students for this. But when you take out the critical thinking and the differences, the different perspectives, when you take all of that out, you have people who are not able to think for themselves. And I think a good example of that is our public discourse today. If you go anywhere on social media and you just observe a conversation between multiple people, you can see some limitations in critical thinking or knowledge, more or less. So this is very important to create graduates who are able to think for themselves, because if they're able to do that, they're able to make informed decisions about their own lives, and these informed decisions can lead to that upward mobility. And that's the goal of going to college. So it sounds obscure, it sounds very convoluted, I know, for a lot of people who feel like, no, you need to get a degree to get a job. But there's so much more than that. You need a capable worker. And that's not to say learning a hard skill and going into that career you're not going to be a capable worker. You can be, but there are so many other industries and so many other jobs that are in need of people who are able to do that. and don't necessarily require hard skills, but really rely on the soft skills. So when you have politicians who are for and against higher education, I think they're overlooking a lot of this, and I think they're missing a lot of the point of what higher education really provides. I think they're looking at what it is, what institutions are doing. They're not necessarily profitable. They might be taking a lot of public funding and really aren't able to show anything for that. But I think where they actually make an impact, it's very hard to measure because the impact is in the individual and it's the impact of the individual over time. So I feel like I kind of may have bounced all over the place. So if that did not make sense, please let me know, or you can rewatch the video to see if it did. But I'm also curious to hear your thoughts. I encourage you to go watch this and see how you feel about it, and then come back and let me know in the comments. So with that, go check it out. Kanopy, remember, Kanopy with a K. That's the place that I know of where you can watch it for free, and that is affiliated through public and university libraries. Otherwise, you can rent it on Prime or YouTube. So go check it out. Don't forget to hit subscribe to see more videos like this, and I will catch you in the next one.